What's going on, my brother? Thank you for listening to this episode of the Becoming Kings podcast. And I could not be more excited to have with us Jon Daniels, who's a pastor. He's an investor. He's a husband, a father, a passionate lover of Jesus. And he is committed to seeing, as he wrote, churches host the presence of God all over the city of Houston. So you're Texas bound, and that's where I am right now. We were just talking about this before we started recording. But dude, thank you. I'm so grateful that our paths across. I'm stoked to have this conversation, and just glad to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, me too, man. Thank you. I'm stoked. This is gonna be good.
Yeah, absolutely. You said you have four little ones. That keeps you busy.
Oh yeah. So seven, let's see, 7, 5, 3, and 1.
Oh
So
my gosh, dude.
boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Right. One right
That's
after another.
yeah. Holy moly. And you've got your sanity. You're getting some sleep somehow.
To be honest with you, it's pretty wild. It's challenged me. It's grown me as a man. Because I mean, you're one of 5, like you were telling me. That is,
Yeah.
it's no small task. I'm one of 4. So the 4 boys.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I grew up in a very rambunctious home, but my parents were really committed to, order and giving us the best life possible. But yeah, as far as like, man, getting sleep, it's more of an art form at this point than a
Yeah.
luxury. I would say you really have to just get creative with it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my mom, God rest her soul, she, did an amazing job in terms of raising us. My dad was obviously the breadwinner, but I think it definitely took a toll on her too, and her just not. I mean, she was deeply spiritual, metaphysical, and would get up long before we were just to pray for an hour every single day, and her books were marked up and everything else. But still not taking care of your health. You gotta make sure that you do that.
wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we miss her every day, but she definitely set me off on my spiritual trajectory too. So I imagine your parents, or your dad at least, you said, is
Yeah.
a pastor as well, right?
Yeah, and my mom, my mom's been she was raised in a pastor's home. She's been like the pastor's wife kind of role. It's kind of funny because I know we're going to kind of dive more into this stuff, but really my take on things is really interesting because when I bring like a religious perspective, you really don't hear a lot about masculinity in Western church culture. In Jesus' day, you did. They wouldn't probably have used the terms we use, but men of the Bible were not afraid of being men. Men of Western Christianity are afraid of being men.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of been an interesting journey. That's actually what got me into this. Is I was I was like, get married, did the whole thing right, and couldn't figure out why my marriage wasn't working. Couldn't figure out why my marriage was failing, and come to find out, I had no idea how to be a man and no idea what made me a man, and that's kind of what launched me into this whole journey. And I really have a heart for Christian men specifically because we're just raised. The only thing we hear about Jesus is turn the other cheek, kind of almost like a glorified pacifist, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't hear the parts about him flipping tables over and I'll get into all this, but calling Herod the I don't know how crass we can be on this, but
We could be totally crass.
okay,
Yeah.
calling Herod basically the modern day equivalent of a derogatory name for a gay man.
Yeah.
When he executed John the Baptist, Jesus did not play around. He was very manly and very masculine, and based on how I define masculinity, we can get into all that. But in any case, I come from a very unique perspective. I feel like because a lot of guys in the manosphere are really not. They don't really come from my background. They're kind of just, they're just like every other dude or whatever. But having a pastor, somebody in ministry who's been around the block for a minute, I have a bit of a unique perspective because I was raised in that, fundamentalism, Western evangelicalism. I'm still a Christian, and Bible believing, all that, but I just have, I really, me and my group of guys really feel like we're pioneering something for the church at least, which is cool. So,
Really
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Really cool. Yeah, and I think that's a big part, obviously, how our paths crossed in having a mutual friend with Christina. But I love what you're doing, and I think just being a life coach for Christian men, helping them figure out what masculinity is and helping them maybe improve or restore their marriages. I unfortunately couldn't get my shit figured out before a previous marriage went to pieces, but that was certainly the catalyst for doing exactly what I'm doing here as well. So we cross paths. Obviously we have a lot of things in common. So I'm just grateful to have you on, but tell me a little bit more about what you see as some of the most common challenges that guys are facing as Christian men these days.
Yeah, I really think I'm sure you've read the book No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. It's kind
He's
of
been
like
on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what an honor! I can't even believe it. He's a hero. That's kind of like a rite of passage for men. I feel like nowadays it's kind of the way we initiate men. We don't really have initiation in American culture. It's kind of, at least it's not standardized. But as far as Christian men go, really the major challenges that I see are they're nice guys, and we spiritualize being a nice guy and passivity, and kind of making our decisions based on our ability to predict how our wives are going to respond. You know what I mean? Rather than as a man having defined, I call them pillars, having defined pillars and purpose that define my trajectory. And, just, I know it kind of sounds selfish. And this is one of the big hangups is Christian men see this as selfish because we've been taught a false definition of what love is. As a Christian man, I have my set pillars. I'm pursuing that purpose, whatever that is, and I'm creating a momentum of safety for my wife and my children to follow behind me in. A lot of what we teach men is, well, there's a scripture that says a husband leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his wife, and it almost has this, the modern day term of that would be a simp. It has this very codependent. I don't know how else to put that except, just this like, oh, I was going this direction. I was going to move here. And then I just met this girl, and it's all fluffy and what have you. But what happens is that it creates so much distrust, and it creates men who are, because they expect their wives to be all in because, well, I gave up everything for her. That same reciprocation, they get resentful, and the marriage just doesn't work. And that's exactly what happened with me. So I would say that, just to answer your question in short, it's really the nice guy syndrome. And not only that, but justifying that dysfunctional mindset with scripture. So we don't just have the societal message of, do whatever it takes to make your wife happy so she doesn't don't make your mother angry, I think is what Dr. Robert Glover says. We also have scripture. And it's interesting what I tell guys, how you read scripture says a lot more about you than it does about scripture. Because we typically read ourselves into the Bible, right?
If through the lens that we look at.
100%. So if you're a nice guy, you're going to see the nice guy things in there. If you're a masculine man, you're going to see, masculinity in there. You're going to see that God's actually the originator of masculinity. And my goal is not to proselytize anybody. My goal is, I'm a Christian guy. It's just who I am as a man, fundamentally.
Right.
That's just who I am. It's not just a pastor. It's just part of who I am. So, really the biggest thing that Christian men face is the need, in order to feel like a good little Christian boy, they've just got to kind of suck up to their wives. And you know what? I got to tell you, of all the guys that I worked with, all of them are Christian guys. And when they start to make these changes in their life that I implement through coaching, their wives tell me, at first, John, I hated it because women are stability seeking. And so they're used to their husbands being simpy, and kissing up to them. But they say, you know what? I trust him so much more now. He's emotionally stable. He can handle when I'm freaking out now. He doesn't tell me how to feel. He also doesn't tell me yes all the time now. He's actually really going after his purpose. He's not needy anymore. Only good things have come out of this, I just think about, Jesus talked about, I came to bring life and life abundantly. If something is giving you a more abundant life, how can God not be on that? If something is making your marriage more healthy, how could God not endorse that? You know what 100%. I'm saying? So yeah, the biggest challenge that I help men with is helping them to unspiritualize and despiritualize their justification for their approval seeking behavior. That's really the first thing I focus on is defining your pillars as a man. And I only allow them to have 4. And we can get into all that if you want, but defining their pillars as a man. And then the thing right after that is breaking that attention seeking, approval seeking behavior. you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll even say with sex specifically, because in Christendom, we say don't have sex before marriage, don't have sex before marriage. And then right when you know, get into marriage, you can have sex. Well, we don't realize that we create this codependency on sex. And so guys, ironically, get way less of it because
Mm-hmm.
they're needy. They're like, look, dude, I've waited for 20 years to do this. And now you're
Yeah.
not listening to me and I'm mad at you. And it's all messed up. It's really, really messed up. So
Yo, I waited 26 years.
oh geez, man. Yeah.
And it
Wow.
didn't help, man. It didn't help.
It's amazing how I say I'm not a Christian fundamentalist. I do believe in biblical morals.
Mm-hmm.
But in Christian fundamentalism, just a side tangent, they take everything and they put it to the same level as gospel. You know, oh, you wore, you know, women, you wore pants instead of a skirt, you're going to hell. You know, it takes everything and puts it up to 100. And so we don't know how to have any healthy management of our desires, of our passions, of our
Yeah.
pursuits. We don't have any kind of healthy management. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I'm rambling now, but that's in short to answer your question. That's what the first thing I help Christian guys with is, you know, their addiction to sex. Usually they have porn issues and
Mm-hmm.
unspiritualizing their approval seeking behavior, you know?
Yeah, which if I were to put it into Johnny's terms, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of like unspiritualizing would be to take full responsibility and not just kind of pass the buck of why they do things the way they do, just because it's the way that Jesus, the way that, or not Jesus, the way that the Bible, the way that they've been taught. It's just like, no, just own it for you, right? Take full responsibility, radical responsibility, right?
Radical, yeah, exactly. And you hit the nail on the head, 100%. And
Okay.
and also, yeah, taking out any kind of justification ammo
Mm-hmm.
they have, any justification they have for being, you know, simpy, for you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, for chasing the approval of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I'm not saying men are better than women. I'm just saying that you're compromising your masculinity if you're chasing the approval of a woman. You're not actually serving her. You're manipulating her. You're trying to get
Well, you're
things
not
out.
leading.
100% no. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
in essence, you're exactly right. Not taking ownership.
When you're chasing, you're not leading. When you're not leading, you're not gaining respect, you know. And it's just, I mean, whether you're talking about men and women or men and men in business or whatever, like if you have a leader, you're still going to have some people that fall in line. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Nope.
We all have different opportunities to be leaders. You see Michael Jordan be an amazing leader, and other times he had to pass the ball or pass the responsibility.
Yeah.
And so there's times to lead and there's times to follow. So one of my favorite books too is Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. And a big part of that is just like not making your woman be the pinnacle of your existence or the peak of your mountain that you're climbing, right?
So good.
And I love that. I mean, kind of, and I say the exact same thing through my own words, but it sounds like you're saying that your four pillars is helping men figure out like what's your greater purpose, even
100%.
beyond the chase. Is that correct?
100%. It's basically, the way I put it is, this is who you are in or out of your marriage. And this is the man you are with your wife, without your wife. These are the small little things that you can control, because, you know, I'm sure, you know, you can't really control anything, but those pillars give you things that you can control, so that you don't have to be emotionally dependent. It's the goal of that is to make you emotionally self-sufficient, so that you're not looking to women to, I don't know, you know, meet those core needs for safety and stability. Nothing wrong with communicating your needs. Nothing wrong with communicating. Excuse me. Nothing wrong with communicating. You know, hey, I'd like to communicate this way in the future. Whatever. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm not going to make my wife responsible for me being happy, stable. Of course, you know, love goes both ways. But with or without my wife, I have an identity apart from my wife, so I'm not dependent on my wife. It gives me a healthy sense of dependence. It makes sure, you know, establishing your four pillars as a man, that you get to choose. It makes sure that you're not codependent on her. It makes sure that you know, your identity is not all wrapped up in a woman, just like John Eldridge says. You know what I love about that book? Side note: I got so offended when he told his son to punch that bully back. You remember that part?
Yeah, of course.
That was the beginning of this journey for me. And I was like, I cannot, it offended every Christian programming I had in my head. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what about this? What about that? And I realized, oh, maybe that's just my own insecurity. And thank God I don't have kids right now. You know, when I read that, I was like, thank God I don't have kids that are at that age, or I'd mess them up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Well, going back to what you said earlier too, is and I've learned that through my church as well, that Jesus really was a holy troublemaker,
yes,
right? He turned tables, he stirred shit up, and he made
absolutely.
things happen. And I think that's, I mean, talk about a man that was not afraid to bring on the heat.
No,
Like
sir.
that was his purpose, right? And he kind of knew the direction it was going to take him, unfortunately, and or fortunately, that was his purpose. And he knew he could
Yep.
have gotten his way out of it,
Yep.
and even pleaded, right? Like, come on,
Yep.
God, give me some other option. This
Yeah,
sucks.
exactly.
But he knew what he had to do, and
Exactly. And
that's a man.
what's interesting about masculinity, it's solid, it's reliable. There's almost a degree of predictability, if I could say that. And that's what
Yeah.
makes me trustworthy, is like with my pillars tell me what to do. They're my core values. I never have to wonder what to do because my pillars are telling me. They're all encompassing enough. They tell me how to respond. And what that does is creates a trustworthiness. My wife may not always like it, but that doesn't really matter because those are the I'm easygoing about everything else. But when it comes with my four pillars, I don't compromise those for anything. My wife has to know where I stand. And in the same way, Jesus, his core value was, I only do what I see the Father doing. Sometimes it looks like redeeming a prostitute that's caught in the dirt. Other times it looks like fashioning a whip and driving people out. It means he was whipping people out of the temple. He had, it didn't always look the same, but his core value was, look, I only do what I see the Father doing. And we kind of have this idea of the Father that he's always like Santa Claus. Now I believe God's good, but there are times where he's like, nope, I've had enough. That's crossing the line for me. Jesus was not this limp-wristed Swedish, blonde hair, blue-eyed, soft fit. He was a rugged man. He worked with his hands. He was manly and he was masculine. So yeah, he was not afraid to get stuff done. If he had a core value that he lived his life by, and that's really what I center like my program around, is guys finding their four pillars that they're going to live their life by, make every decision through, with or without people's approval. Because you've got to start, a man who's living in his masculine purpose is making wakes. It's like a boat, like David Data says, going through the ocean. Yep. He's making his own momentum. And when he finds a woman that he wants, he says, I want you to come along for the ride. You understand what I mean? Like he does, because then you're just changing your direction based on which way the waves are going. And anyways, that's what I teach guys to do, is to, discover your four pillars, or decide either way, and don't compromise those for anything. We're not stubborn about everything. We're stubborn about those four things, though. That's never going to change. And it creates a stability and safety for our wives. You know what I mean?
Would you say that then that fits into what masculinity really represents?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. My definition, my personal definition, I'm sure you would agree, and everybody has their own kind of words for it. If I could, I don't know if I could have like a one-liner definition, but I can tell you when a man is connected to that masculine core, it's solid, he's consistent, he's predictable, in a sense, predictable. You understand what I mean by that? He's not led emotionally, he's led logically, and his emotions come later. Women feel then act, feel then think then act, and men think then act then feel. And a man who's indexed properly, as I would say, in his masculinity, a masculine man is like a mountain. A feminine woman's like the ocean. This has been said ad nauseum. I'm going to be copying a lot of what David Data said in The Way of Superior Man. It was an absolutely incredible book. That was another game changer for me besides Robert Glover's book. But a man he's that solid. It doesn't matter what the ocean's doing, doesn't matter what his woman's doing, he's going somewhere. A man is decisive, he's logical, he's not making decisions emotionally. He has emotions, he honors them, but he puts them behind his purpose. Everything, his purpose, his pillars come first before everything. His core values are everything to him. So if he compromises those things, that is his masculine identity. Those pillars, his purpose. If he compromises those things, he's compromised his masculinity. So,
and he's compromising those things when he's chasing anything other than those things.
I agree.
Women or sex or pleasure, instant gratification, 100%. Money, status.
Yes.
Anything like that, right?
I absolutely agree. Yeah. And in very short, mine are, I'm a Christian man and all that comes with that. I'm a man who takes care of himself. I'm a man who provides stability for his family, and I'm a man who pursues brotherhood. Those are my four core values that I make every decision. And I'll tell you what that's looked like at times has been, hey, when I come home, I exercise. My wife may say, well, honey, I need your help with the kids. And I say, absolutely. I'm going to go exercise and I'll be back to help. I'll be back to get our routine going. She starts to do what the ocean does and splashes. Well, it's not fair. You get, a big thing with guys is I say, stand by your pillars without telling your wife how to feel about it. Validate her emotions. Don't say, well, I'm doing it anyways. Get over it. Hold space for her. Yep, I understand. But when it's a pillar-based decision, you do it anyways. You allow her to be the ocean and you validate that. You get to be as angry as you'd like to be. No problem. I'm still going to go on a run. So she knows where I stand with that. And after a while, she'll even ask me, she'll just say, hey, how was your run? You know what I mean? So, I'm not stubborn about everything, because that's a domineering, controlling man who probably is really insecure. That's not a masculine man. I am stubborn about my pillars. When it comes to decisions, things like that, I do not allow anything to change my mind. And, when it comes to finances, same thing. I have a goal of providing stability financially for a pillar around providing financial stability. Man, you can't change my mind. My wife's like, we need to replace the lawn and everything. There was one time she was like, we need to replace the lawn. And old me would have been like, yes, dear, anything, anything that you want, thinking, oh, this is how I get sex. This is how I'm a good man. This is how I'm a good Christian husband. It was out of a good place.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't out of a good place. Let's be honest. But, I thought it was out of a good place. But before making a decision, I look at my pillars. Will this cause me to compromise a pillar? And it would have, you know what I mean? We live on half an acre. So what is that, like $8,000 just to replace grass? I said, I'm not doing that. Well, she gets a little frustrated, right? That's fine. She's allowed to be frustrated. That's okay. Well, you know what? The week after that would have drained our savings account almost. The week after that, I had to replace all 4 tires on our minivan. And I'm really glad that I stood by my pillars, and she ended up thanking me later. Most guys aren't willing for their wives to be frustrated with them for a day if it means they're true to themselves as a man. They're willing to compromise themselves as a man because their wife's going to be mad at them for a day or even for 15 minutes. So, she trusts my leadership more, so anyways, that's I hope that answered your question. I'm kind of
no, it totally does. And I do feel like, guys who struggle to figure out what they're standing for, they're the ones that are certainly being rocked by the waves. And, certainly we know from the story in the Bible where you just gotta you can calm those waves by just being, mellow, stoic. Yeah. However you want to say it,
I'm glad you said that, because if you look back at that story, Jesus had no intention of calming that storm. He had no intention. He was asleep in the bottom of the boat. Look at that. He did not allow the waves to dictate his decision making. And that's why he had the authority to calm the waves. It's interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's that's one of the parables that story that I use to help guys understand, Christian guys understand this, because it's a context they get.
Totally.
If you look at Jesus being a perfect picture of masculinity and the ocean being the perfect picture of femininity. And I just want to say this on the side note. I stopped seeing that as a defect in my wife, her being, emotional and splashing. I stopped seeing that as a defect. It's her job. My wife's job to be that way. And it's my job to be solid. That's fine. It's not that I can't have emotions or whatever. I don't think she's toxic for being like that. I think women need some of that drama in there. Anyways, back to the Jesus thing, but and it's a good drama's a good thing for a woman. She's got to have it. Actually creates longing. They get pissed at you, and then they're like, oh, but he's so, there's something about you staying solid that just pulls them back to you. It's just how God made him. I love it. Anyways, Jesus had no intent. He was going to sleep right through that storm. He did not allow an external to decide his internal state of being. That's the key to masculinity. Men, when they're internally strong, are able to change the external and create a peaceful external. Women often get their internal peace from external circumstances. How are the finances doing? How's our relationship doing? Men can't get that from their wives, or they're going to be codependent. You got two oceans splashing against each other. One of you guys has to be masculine, and it's usually going to be the woman because she's a good multitasker. But when that man is at inner peace with himself, he's got his pillars, he's living by his pillars, he can actually have authority to calm the storm. Just exactly like you said. I love that. It's one of the greatest pictures of masculinity, I think, that I can ever give guys. I'm really glad you brought that one up.
Yeah, well, likewise. And when I think about, gosh, I've been in Hawaii, and even this past fall in Italy along the Amalfi Coast, and there's if there were just beautiful places. And let's just say if the ocean was calm, it'd be like, oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
look how nice this is. Yeah. But when you actually have the waves crashing against the rocks and boom, and like coming out of like those blowholes or whatever, it's just like it actually makes the moment so much more rich and enjoyable and memorable. And I do feel like that's what the feminine is all. It's to take something and to magnify it and to make it to allow us to feel more, right? If everything was just all about the masculine of solving problems and getting from point A to point B, it'd be fucking boring. It really would be, right? And so there's such a great balance between the masculine and the feminine, and such a need, because I do feel like sometimes men and women, when they're expressing their feminine, still take it as like it's a weakness or it's a bad thing. Like, no, it's the only thing that allows you to enjoy worship music or a concert or a ball game or like, right? So
I love
so much to be said about that.
It's the art of war. I love that title. From another kind of analogy that helps me understand this is like a greenhouse. You look at a greenhouse, if there's nothing inside of it, it's stable, it's steady. It creates a good environment. It creates the proper environment for plants to grow in. But there's no beauty to it inherently. But it does provide the right atmosphere for plants to grow in, for beautiful things to grow in outside of their normal environment, whatever. That's how I see my relationship with my wife, the masculine and feminine. My pillars create a frame for myself chiefly. But as I'm living out of that frame, I'm creating a frame for my wife to fully bloom and blossom and be her feminine self. So she gets to relax. She's like, wow, I can just be completely feminine here because my husband is filling the role of being completely masculine. You know what I mean? And situationally, how that would play out is, when the water's hitting the rock and the blowhole and everything, I'm there, I validate, I listen. And sometimes I'll do what she's asking me to do if it doesn't compromise a pillar. That's fine. I'm secure enough to do that. Not a big deal. I know a lot of guys in the manosphere is like, no, you never listen to your woman. I'm like, I actually don't, sometimes it's leadership to recognize she's better in an area than I am. And that's fine.
100%.
I think, who's that gentleman that wrote, it's slipping my mind. It's another book from that guy close to Robert Glover. It's like How to Win Her Trust, Lust, and whatever. Anyways, it's a great book, but The Masculine in Relationship, that's what it's called. Fantastic book. I can't remember who wrote it, but fantastic book. He talks about, one of the ways that I can provide leadership is, hey, I know the kids need to go down at X, Y, or Z time. Honey, kids got to go down in an hour. What do we need to get done before then? Whatever. Or let's say she's like, let's say she's like, hey, you didn't do X, Y, or Z, and I'll listen. And if the thing that she wants me to do that she's pissed off about doesn't compromise a pillar, I'll do it. Not a problem. I'm there to, I'm serving, loving, taking care, providing. And again, on the flip side, if what she's asking me to do, if I do that, if it would compromise one of my pillars, I don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. The reason that's so important is I'm not letting her emotions dictate my decision making. I'm letting my core values dictate my decision making, but I'm also able to recognize where she's better and more proficient at things. And that's also leadership, is recognizing where I need to empower somebody else that's better than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think what's challenging, especially for guys that are in relationships, and obviously for those that aren't, sometimes the only way I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, and this is just my opinion, is like sometimes the only way to grow in this way at times is in relationship with the feminine. That's 100%. Going to challenge you or test you, or it's one thing to be like, I'm solid, I'm really good, I got everything. When you're single, there's nothing rocking your boat, right? But when you get in a relationship with another who just seems to trigger you, that's when the full court press is on.
So true. Yeah, I'm very glad you said that. It's so true. I mean, I can't imagine how embarrassing it would be to be a little grain of sand thinking I'm this big boulder, and the moment the ocean splashes on me, I'm like, I'm done. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm glad you said that. It's so true. I did not realize I had anxiety until I got married, and I'm not lying to you about that. I did not realize I had anxiety and depression until I got married, and I had someone professional tell me like, hey man, you have symptoms of anxiety and depression. That's started helping me go towards this journey. And then I had a mirror, and it's you can't run away, man. I didn't realize how much facade and performance and nice guy stuff I had until I got married, and it's very true. You can think you're doing well, and then there's somebody there that is kind of just has the most intimate look at you, and you can't BS your way out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does grow your masculine, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about your fourth pillar that you mentioned, because I do feel like I've had some substantial growth ever since, because like I told you before we started recording, I was working with women primarily for 8 years, coaching them, and then just feeling myself not being fulfilled and frustrated with myself. And it wasn't until actually I was at a mastermind that I was in 2018, when one of the speakers who ended up ultimately becoming my coach and writing the forward of my book, Christine Hasler, said to me, like, Johnny, you got to figure out what it means for you to be a man. And then you got to teach others to do the same. And I was so scared by that idea, and realized how much safety I'd found in being around women, just because I was raised by women primarily, and felt so unsafe by men, that I was like, oh crap, this is probably, it just resonated as what I needed to do. But I also felt like in relationships, I felt safe, but then I wasn't often called upon to be masculine, because I don't think the women I was with even trusted me enough. Right. Yep. So it wasn't until I really got into brotherhood with other men, fellowship with other men, that I started to feel safe and really challenged and seen in different ways that I hadn't felt seen or challenged before. So maybe you can lean into that too, in terms of one of your pillars of the importance of men needing men and surrounding themselves with good men and doing the work with other men. What's your viewpoint on that kind of broad question?
Yeah, that's a fantastic point and question. I heard someone, I think Tony Robbins said this, every Christian has different views on evolution. I don't think it's that huge of a deal, how you think about it. But we have a 5 million-year-old brain, and our brain's not wired to keep us happy. It's wired to keep us alive. And so there are good and bad things with that. One of the good things, though, is that if you look at tribal culture, when men had their purpose was to provide meat and protection for the tribe, well, they would get together and hunt. And so, nowadays we don't have to do that as men. We can kind of have our own thing. But one of the biggest things we have to get together and hunt is insecurity, is femininity. Men, the way I've seen is men heal in community, men heal in groups, and the one-on-one. I chiefly work with one-on-one. We're actually working on launching a group coaching thing now. But cool. In fact, I just finished the first draft for my first module today, which is exciting.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm really stoked. So, but men have to have an aspect of their healing journey and their masculine journey with other men, because there's something about, I don't know who said this. probably one of the guys we've already mentioned, but they said women are matured by nature. They're initiated into femininity by nature. Men are initiated into masculinity by other men.
Mm.
They're not initiated by other men, they stay little boys.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a culture that, and this is right from No More Mr. Nice Guy, the Industrial Revolution really changed everything. Fathers are not initiating their children anymore. And the only feedback, men are very good. All of us are very good mirrors, but men have to have that mirror of masculinity. And let me just say, we already do. Every man has a pillar or pillars. Every man has a mirror of what it means to be a man. It's just the wrong reflection. It's the wrong message. And so what brotherhood does, and specifically men that are going after how to be masculine and how to live in their masculinity, let me just say that, because I don't think it's something we create. It's something we discover. It's already in us. But men that are going after that together, there's something so special and so important to that masculine identity. We tend to just we that woolly mammoth of insecurity and femininity that's in us, that we're raised with by our society, tends to only come down when we're with other men. Men get chiefly most of their identity from other men. They Men get their identity a lot from their purpose. Women get a lot of their identity from the state of their relationships. And I'm not saying women can't have their own purpose or whatever, but you look at depression, men are usually purpose depressed. Women are usually relationally depressed. And how that, how that looks. There's always exceptions to that. But yeah, so a huge part of your masculine identity is defined by, I would say it's probably mostly defined by your relationship with other men and by your relationship with your father, what that looked like. He gave you a version of masculinity that wasn't beneficial. Most of us got that from our dads. So yeah, having men that are running after these insecurities, and it's everything, man. It's absolutely been the most important part of my masculine journey. And my wife knows that when every other Thursday night I gather with my guys and we smoke cigars and we go after this and we call each other on our BS and we hold each other accountable and we call things out and we cry together and we scream and get the pain out together. We do all of that stuff together. I remember the first meeting we had, I told the guys, I was like, guys, I feel like we're hunting together right now. Like, this is so awesome. And we're in my best friend's garage smoking cigars.
Yeah.
Just talking about, all of our stuff and really how do we become men. And we've discovered this thing together and really built a beautiful framework together. And my wife knows that she didn't even ask like, hey, can you stay home this Thursday? All she says like, hey, tonight's your night with your guys, right? That's all she asked me. And I'm like, yeah, she knows not even to touch it. It's just a pillar thing for me going back to that. But a massive, in fact, my first clients were guys from my group that we've kind of gone with. So
sure.
A huge part of the masculine development is other men. And still part of that for me. I don't think we reach a finish line with this. I think it's more of a direction we're going. So
for sure. For guys that are listening and maybe don't have that men's group, cigar smoking men's group, what are some other resources that you would recommend for guys to get in proximity with other good, healthy men who are seeking growth and healing and everything else?
Man, it's a great question. I'm fortunate enough because my church really values community already. So that was a huge core value. And I recognize, man, there's a lot of lonely people out there. There's a lot of people just doing their thing. They don't really have deep, intimate relationships. I know one of the best things, and this is not just a shameless plug for my business, but it is, I'm just going to say it. Even the ability to virtually meet with men on a weekly basis is absolutely huge. There are so many men's group, including my own. I'm going to be launching soon. And I wish I had this more developed by the time of this podcast, because I know your audience is going to be like, what is that? Whatever. But I wish I had it more in a solid form. We're still kind of in the research and development phase, but finding a group of men, there are so many out there that are committed to the masculine journey and masculine development. And all of them kind of have their emphasis, but they're all going after the same thing. And all of them are going to have gyms in there. But if you don't have any guys around you, there are so many guys online that meet weekly. You have to pay for it, but isn't this worth it, man? I mean, you may have to pay $300 a month you'll never make a greater investment than in yourself, right? As far as, me, my masculine development, it's changed everything. I make more money now. My marriage is healthy. My kids have a present father. My health is better than it's ever been. Well, I will say it's better than it's been in the last 4 years. That's for sure. All of that came from seeking community. And so if you don't have guys around you, you can either start sharing this with a friend, get them interested. I know in my experience, as far as dudes around me, when I have started to share this thing, they're like, man, I like this. I need to know more about this. And you can
Mm-hmm.
start just building a posse like that. For me, I'm 100% responsible for my life. So if I don't, if the need is not readily available to be met, I find a way that I can meet it for myself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if not, if I can't do that immediately around me, there are so many groups online, guys. If you just Googled like men pursuing masculinity together, I'm telling you right now, you'll start to find several of them. And if you're a Christian guy, be on the lookout for mine. My name's Jon Daniels, as you'll see on this podcast. But
Yeah.
you can find me on. I put my Facebook link on there. I'm pretty sure. If not, I can send it to
Yep.
you. But it's we're coaching men one-on-one, and within the next 2 months or so, we're going to launch the group coaching thing. And
That's
so
awesome.
find guys online, guys. I'm telling you, there are so many men out there. And let me just caution you, stay away from the guys that are only about pickup. I know that there's some good stuff in that that's been beneficial for my confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find dudes. A lot of the pickup guys that I've seen, not all of it's bad, not all of it's good. And this is my personal opinion. And as a man, I'm going to stand by this. You can feel free to disagree. They need affirmation from women too much, and I don't like that. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I spent all of my life trying to get affirmation from women, and it came from my mommy stuff. The measure of
Mm-hmm.
myself, me as a man is not, how much pussy I get. It's not how much
Mm-hmm.
women I sleep with. It's am I truly fulfilling my purpose as a man? And so that's what I would say. I would caution you against joining involuntary celibate groups.
Mm-hmm.
But find men who are really doing this and trying to be healthy, and ironically, you get more sex that way, anyways.
Yeah. Funny how that works out. I've talked about it before, but it's one of those things where I know when my life was kind of just crumbling around me and my divorce was happening. I remember just kind of standing there and thinking like, how did I get here?
Yeah,
And what do I need to do to turn things around? And you know, having lost my mom as well to cancer a couple of years prior, and now feeling like I just was at the bottom of a barrel. The angel message came to me is just to serve.
wow.
And I was like, serve, like I got nothing to give. I got half my furniture. I don't have a job. I don't know, like I don't have a marriage anymore. Like what do I have to give? And the same thought just kind of kept coming back to me to serve and to give. And I think there's something to be said about it wasn't about drinking, it wasn't about sex, it's just about what can I do to give to others. And that was the genesis of what began my first gym. And certainly it did start helping middle-aged 40, 50, 60-year-old women who needed a new place to work out that wasn't jazzercise or curves or Gold's Gym, right? And so I found something in the Midwest that helped. But to your point, it's one of those things where I just felt like I was starting to lean into, okay, with or without, that's kind of the thought that came into my mind, with or without my uh significant other at the time, I have to do this.
Yes.
Right. So I still had to lean into quitting my job, because I already had made that decision before I came home that weekend and been told that the marriage was over. But I remember thinking to myself, well, shoot, do I go back to certainty? Should I go back to security and go back to my job? Or it's like, no, like all the decisions I had made up to that point had made me the man that I had become, but I wasn't happy with that man anymore. Things had to change. Right. So I think it's a big part of what you just said, leaning into your men's group, into your work, into anyone that men just need to search. They can find it online. Just find someone who's willing to hold you accountable to being a bigger version than the smaller version maybe that you've been playing in life. Right.
100%, man. That's beautiful. What a beautiful story, man. I love that. Just to piggyback off of that, I love how your thought process wasn't, and I'm sure this was probably in there, but you didn't say that, which tells me that This is the one you ran. The right thought process is the one you ran with. Instead of blaming her, you said, I'm going to change. I'm going to take accountability for my life. Such a huge part of masculinity, man, is taking full responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because where we're responsible, we're powerful. And that's
Mm-hmm.
ultimately what every person's looking for, is we're looking to feel in control.
Mm-hmm.
Looking to feel, because we need safety and stability.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're responsible, you actually provide that sense of safety and stability for yourself, rather than relying on someone else to do it for you, like a child would, and not,
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously a nuance to that, and we got to heal the inner child and all that stuff. But I love that your response to that was, I've got to do this for myself. The option of saving the marriage is out the window. I've just got to be a better man for myself. That's another thing that
Mm-hmm.
I help guys with is, well, if I have pillars, well, how do I do that without making my wife pissed off? It's like, look, it's not about your marriage at this point, buddy. It's about you. Your marriage is,
Mm-hmm.
I had some guys explain it to me this way. Your marriage is like a business that you own with your wife. Your business isn't you. It's just going to reflect who you are as a person, as a man,
That's a good
and
point.
so, yeah. What it's, that helps create a sense of distance from, my marriage is not my identity. My pillars are my identity as a man. My marriage is going to basically be what I bring to the table and how my wife responds to that. That's really what it
Mm-hmm.
is, man. What women
Mm-hmm.
and children respond, they're an echo of what the man's bringing to the table. And so really good feedback is how you're, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, they're going to fill in the gaps that the man brings or doesn't bring. If the man is
100%.
masculine, the woman's going to be masculine
Right.
and feminine and resent her husband for it.
Right.
If the man's masculine, the woman's going to be totally in her feminine. Children are going to feel safe enough to be well behaved. We had a night tonight that was wild, so that's not 100%, but a man, for me, I used to think, well, this marriage can't get better unless we're both working on ourselves. And I just thought, you know what, screw that. I had a guy confront me on that. He said, no, man, forget your marriage. You need to get freedom for you. As I
Mm-hmm.
started doing that, this wild thing happened, bro. She started saying, like, I started being healthy, stopped responding poorly, stopped yelling back at her, stopped, started being more solid, and also started sticking up for myself as far as my pillars go, and not just being a simp and then blowing up at her and then saying sorry and then being a simp again. I started to have my own identity outside of our marriage. And she started thinking, she told me, just, I think 2 months into this whole process, she goes, John, I'm going to start seeing a therapist to work on my stuff. Incredible. And I didn't wait for her to change. I didn't tell her what to do. I just started working on myself. She saw
Mm-hmm.
the changes, and then it actually led her into her own healing, which I'm not responsible for that. She's, all credit goes to her for making that choice. But so many men are waiting on their wives to change, man. And really, look, I can't guarantee your wife's going to stick with you. What I can guarantee is that you're going to be a free man. I can
Mm-hmm.
guarantee that you're going to love yourself. I can guarantee you're going to
Mm-hmm.
love yourself. And that's priceless. You can't put a price on that. So
Well, you certainly, not meaning you, but any of us men who are listening owe it to ourselves to be a man that's difficult to leave, and to be a man that is worthy of investment, right? Not only in of ourselves, but a woman, significant other who's like, I see the direction he's going. Like, I want to be a part of that, versus us being, stubborn, heels in the ground, justifying, rationalizing away behavior, not growing. And with each argument where there's no progress, it's just a further kind of chip away at that armor.
Yep.
And to the point where she's like, fuck this. Like, my life
Yeah.
is going to be better without him.
Yeah.
If you're growing and you're moving in the direction, it's a win-win regardless. She's either going to say, I'm with you, or you're going to outgrow her.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'll find abundance around the next corner, right?
Yep.
That's the way that I
100%.
rationalize it. So,
Yeah, your rationale is great, and you're going to leave her better than you found her.
yeah.
You're going to, in any case, if they're, again, I'm not guaranteeing anybody's marriage is going to get saved, but what I am going to guarantee is you're going to be a better man. You're going to
Yeah.
be more solid, and hopefully, you are going to leave her better than you found her. You know what I mean? So that's what a gift you get to give to that woman, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you guys choose to part ways, that's fine. But what a gift that you got to show her, at least for a little bit, at least at the end there, what it's like to be loved by a man who's pursuing his purpose, and who has a sense of identity outside of her. That's the greatest gift I could give my wife. And in fact, the first 2 weeks that I was going on this process, my wife did not like it because, again, they're stability seeking, and she was used to me being a nice guy. She was used to me, and then blowing up at her and then saying, "I'm sorry, babe," and doing the Christian thing. She was used to that routine, and so she actually got a sense of stability from the dysfunction. That interesting. When I started to change, she didn't like it. But what started to happen is I had more bandwidth to deal with her emotional splashing as a woman because I was pursuing my own purpose as a man. She started to get her own healing, and without going into too much detail, I used to have to chase my wife down for sex. It's the exact opposite now. I'm not saying I don't say, hey, let's connect, whatever. When she's in her feminine, she enjoys having sex with me as a man that is not relying on it for happiness. She's actually receiving that masculine energy. That's a side note. But she ends up telling me, she said, "John, thank you. The greatest gift that you've given me is to be your own man and to discover your purpose as a man." That's what women want. They don't want to be with a guy who's emotionally dependent on her. It's not that we can't say, "Hey, I want to communicate better next time." Stuff like that's fine. But they want to be with a man that knows who he is. And I just want to touch on this. I know we're wrapping up, but on the drama piece that I mentioned earlier, women need that emotional tension. I heard Robert Glover say this. It transformed my marriage, honestly, this little bit. Women need that emotional tension. So when we just bend over every time she gets mad and we placate, we're actually robbing them of the need for emotional tension. They need a level of drama in their relationship with you. And when you're a solid man, there's got to be that polarity where you're solid and she's splashy. It doesn't mean she's weaker. She's doing her job. I'm not saying the masculine's better than the feminine. I am saying it's different. But that emotional tension and that drama actually is what keeps her attached to you. It's incredible how there one of the first times I did the brotherhood night, she's like, my phone's blown up. I'm smoking cigars with the guys. We're going into our processes and it's awesome. And she goes, it's just not fair that you get to connect with all these guys and I don't. And I just refused to text back. I said, I want to be present with the guys. 10 minutes later, she's texting me. She's like, "I can feel your kisses all over me." And I'm like, wow, isn't that amazing? How when
Yeah.
I didn't, it used to be like, "Oh, babe, I'm so sorry. Let me see if I can get out of here early." No. She, babe's only going to hit the mountain so many times before it settles down. She needed that drama. And so if I were to say, "Well, why are you such a nagging bitch all the time?" If I were to say that to my wife, I'm robbing her of that emotional tension. And so it's a gift to my wife when I'm solid and I don't tell her how to feel and I don't tell her and I don't I actually say, "You get to be as angry as you'd like to be. I love you. That's totally fine with me. Here's what I'm going to do." I don't tell her what to do. I tell her what I'm going to do. And it creates that tension. And then boom, what do you know? She's like, "I can feel your kisses all over me. Get home as soon." So women need that drama. Anyways, that's a little side tangent. Hopefully that helps whatever guys listen.
It totally does. And I feel like the metaphor, the analogy, whatever you want to say, kind of that pops into my mind is like, especially since I'm from Colorado, not that I climb a lot, but when you're climbing and you've got a lead rope or you're belaying or whatever, there's got to be tension on the rope, right? If you have slack in that rope, she's never going to trust that you've got her. She's going to fall, right? So you've got to have that tension between the two, right? So that someone's leading, someone's following, someone's supporting, not even following. It's just like someone might be climbing while the other person's holding the rope safe, right? And I think there's times when both men and women in a relationship are going to be leading and need to know that the other person has their back, literally, right?
God, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant. I don't know about you, man. When I start talking like this, I get so energized. I just get that masculine energy in me just goes through the roof, man.
Yeah, same.
I'm gonna go start a business or something to make $4 million. I don't know. I just my masculine thing, it just goes through the roof. That is brilliantly put, man. That's excellently put. And that's one of the ways we lead. I mean, as men, it's not necessarily we're always making the choices. I do make the choices when it comes to my pillars, but one of those things could be like, "Hey, my wife knows a lot more what to do with dinner than I do." That's great. The other day I told her, I said, "Hey, honey, what are we doing with dinner?" Or, she goes, "It's way too early." I said, "Look, I'm going to give us a peaceful evening. That's it's one of my pillars. I'm providing emotional stability. And I let her walk me through on the phone how to put the chicken in the oven because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. You know what I mean? I make eggs. I made some really good chicken tonight, let me just say. But when it came to, the kind of chicken we had available yesterday, I let her lead me with that. I didn't feel insecure about it. But I was providing leadership of saying, hey, here's where we're going. I'm going to we're going to have a peaceful evening. So I'm going to get ahead of dinner. Tell me what to do. I have no idea what I'm doing here, and letting her lead there. So, anyways, man, I love that Slack analogy though. That's brilliant.
Yeah. It's just a good, it's just the polarity, right? The masculine, the feminine without both. And you don't have a whole lot of, energy coming from it. And then to your point too, when you get into these conversations, that's why I think men need to be around other men, because it does energize us, versus kind of, not that being around women emasculates us. Certainly doesn't. There can be a lot of polarity there too, but in the wrong relationship to the feminine, it can be very emasculating. But we're giving away our power in that sense, right? Whether it be around women or porn or drugs or whatever, right? So anyways, dude, I will throw in any links that you sent me or any new into the show notes, so guys will have that whether listening to this now or a year or two from now. Tell the guys real quick just a little bit more of what you're working on and what you've got going on in terms of one-on-one support or group support or programs. What do you have that you've got working on?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing we're doing. I'm in my research and development phase. I've been working with guys for a long time, but I've never put together a like formal program, like coursework that every dude goes through. Doesn't matter where you're at, it can help you. And not only can it help you, it's going to push you to the next level in your masculine journey. So we're working on that now. If you want to, work with me as a one-on-one life coach, I'm offering a discount, and this is, what is this, August 15th of 2023 on my personal life coaching rate, because guys are basically helping me out right now. I'm experimenting on as many guys as I can just to get this process down. And it's not experimenting. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to screw you up. At least I hope not. No guy has ever told me otherwise, but you can visit my Facebook page, the link that John is going to put in there. So if you, the link that's going to be in there is fine. It'll go to my Facebook page, shoot me a direct message. Let's work together. Even after we launch the group coaching thing, that'll be all over my social media. You can still find me with that Facebook thing. I wish I had it together for this thing so guys could go right to it. But my goal is to make it the most affordable, the group coaching thing, to be the most affordable men's development group on the internet. That's my vision. And I want to hit as many guys as I can, and specifically Christian guys, but any guy is going to be able to take this course. But yeah, it's really for any guy. My focus, my target audience is going to be Christian dudes, just because I relate to them the best. But you don't have to be a Christian to take this course. So really again, my vision with this is to impact as many men as possible. And what's awesome, dude, this is so cool. This is just a testament to this journey, is the coaches that are going to be under me, that are going to be coaching these groups of guys with me, are the dudes that started this journey with. And so it's really cool. It's really cool. So you're really going to get to tap into, you're going to get to be a part of this like amazing group of guys that we've built over the years, that smoke cigars together. We cry out our emotional pain together. We hold each other by the scruff of the neck and say, you're going to do this, and you're going to do it like a man. And you're going to get to step into what we've built with each other for the last couple of years. You're going to get to be a part of that. And so I just think it's the coolest thing, man. I'm getting to do this
really cool.
with my best friends in the world. And it's just awesome. So
it's really cool.
If you guys are interested in, follow go to my Facebook link. And if this is after we launch the group coaching thing, for a lot of you, it might be, you'll see my group coaching link on there involved. I'm even considering, Johnny, maybe you can give me your feedback about this, but the group coaching calls, a cigar and scotch is going to be required, but I'm not totally settled on that yet. Everybody smokes cigars. So
yeah. See, that's a good thing. I don't smoke cigars and I don't drink scotch. So
there you go.
Yeah. And I'd live to be a part of it. So, but anyways, dude, thank you for hanging with me. Thanks for connecting, giving your gifts to the guys, to the listeners. And I definitely will put that link in the show notes, but I'm just grateful that our paths have crossed, and that you're doing what you're doing, and at the very least that you're giving the gift of your own healing to your woman and to your kids. I don't think there could be any better gift than that to let that ripple out for generations to come. So thank you. Appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an honor, man.
For sure. Well, thank you guys for listening, as always, to this episode of the Becoming Kings podcast. I'm Johnny King. Thanks for tuning in. Check out Jon Daniels and his link in the show notes. And until we meet again, we'll talk to you on the next episode. Cheers, guys.